My name is Mark, and I'm a high school history teacher in a small town called Havenwood. It's the kind of place where everyone knows everyone, and a trip to the grocery store can turn into an hour-long catch-up session. It's idyllic on the surface, the kind of town you see in movies, but beneath that calm exterior, there's a current of something off. It's a quietness that isn't peaceful. It's a silence that is shared, a stillness that is practiced. The town's strangest tradition is something they call the quiet. It happens once a year, usually in the spring, and it's always preceded by a festival. A big community barbecue, a bonfire, and a town-wide party. And then for a week everyone goes quiet. They don't talk to each other. They don't look each other in the eye. They don't interact. They just go about their lives silent as ghosts. I'm not from here. I moved here 5 years ago, and I was told to respect the tradition, to not ask questions, to not try to break the silence. So I didn't. This year, the quiet came early. It was a week after the town's annual barbecue, a big affair with a bonfire and a whole lot of meat. I was at the party helping my girlfriend Sarah set up a few things. She's a local, born and raised, and she knows the traditions better than anyone. I asked her about the meat. What kind of meat is this? I asked, a sense of unease creeping into my gut. It smells a little different. Sarah just laughed. It's just deer, silly. The hunters from town bring it in. It's a tradition. Don't worry about it. I didn't worry about it. Not then. I didn't worry about the fact that a few people at the party had a faraway look in their eyes. I didn't worry about the fact that Sarah's dad, a tough, no-nonsense man, was standing by the bonfire, staring at the flames, a vacant expression on his face. I didn't worry about the fact that I saw him pick up a hot dog, his hands shaking, and shove it into his mouth, his eyes wide and unblinking. It was all just part of the local color. The next day, the silence started. Everyone went quiet. My students came to class, sat at their desks, and didn't make a sound. They didn't talk to each other. They didn't talk to me. They just sat there, their eyes vacant, their faces blank. It was unsettling, but I was told this was normal. I taught my class, my voice echoing in the silent room. When the bell rang, they all stood up, their movements slow and deliberate, and they left. They didn't say goodbye. They didn't say a word. The quiet went on for 2 days. On the third day, I was at the coffee shop and I saw a woman, a barista, standing behind the counter. She was staring at a man in the drive-thru, her face a blank mask. She held a steaming cup of coffee in her hand, and then, without a word, she poured it on her arm. She didn't flinch. She just stared at him, her eyes wide and unblinking as the scalding coffee sizzled on her skin. I wanted to scream. I wanted to help her, but I couldn't. The town was quiet. The rules. I couldn't break the silence. I ran back to my car, my heart pounding in my chest. I called Sarah, my voice a frantic whisper. Sarah, what's going on? I just saw a woman pour hot coffee on her arm. No one did anything. What is happening? Sarah's voice was a low murmur. Mark, you have to be quiet. You have to respect the tradition. This is how it is. This isn't a tradition, Sarah. This is a nightmare. People are hurting themselves. You don't understand, she said, her voice sounding far away. You're not from here. You don't know the rules. I didn't know the rules. I didn't want to. I just wanted to get out of this town. I wanted to pack my bags, get in my car, and drive as far away as I could. But I couldn't. I had to stay. I had to find out what was going on. I had to find out what was wrong with the people in this town, with my girlfriend, with her dad. I had to find out what was in the meat they ate. I drove to the local butcher shop. It was a small place run by a man named Old Man Hemlock. He was a quiet, unassuming man, and he was the one who supplied the meat for the barbecue. The shop was closed, but I saw a light on in the back. I knocked on the door, but there was no answer. I tried the door and it was unlocked. I went inside. The shop was clean, but it had a strange smell. A smell of rot and something else, something I couldn't place. I walked to the back, to the meat locker. I opened the door and the cold air rushed out. I saw a dozen deer hanging on hooks, their bodies pale and lifeless. But there was something else. A large iron chest chained to the wall. It had a heavy lock, a lock that was old and rusted. I tried to open it, but it wouldn't budge. I heard a sound behind me. I turned and I saw Old Man Hemlock standing in the doorway, a meat cleaver in his hand. He was staring at me, his eyes wide and unblinking. He didn't say a word. He just stared. I knew what he was. He was one of them. He was a victim of the quiet, and he was a part of the nightmare. I backed away, my heart pounding in my chest, my hands trembling. Old Man Hemlock, I said, my voice a whisper. What is this? What's going on? He didn't answer. He just raised the meat cleaver, a slow, deliberate motion. I knew he wasn't going to hurt me. He was going to hurt himself. He was going to follow the rules. He was going to become a part of the town's horrible secret. I had to stop him. I lunged forward, grabbing his arm, trying to stop him from hurting himself. But he was stronger than he looked. He was a man possessed, a man with a vacant look in his eyes, a man who was no longer in control of his body. We struggled, and then I heard a sound of a door opening. I looked up and I saw Sarah standing in the doorway, her face pale and her eyes wide. She was not a part of the quiet. She was a witness, an unwilling participant. She was here and she was watching. She was the one who was going to find the truth, the one who was going to find a way to stop this nightmare. And I had a feeling that this was only the beginning. The silence in the butcher shop was a lie. The air was thick with the scent of fear and the low, guttural humming that had settled over the town like a shroud. Old Man Hemlock's eyes, wide and vacant, were fixed on me as he raised the cleaver. His movements were slow, deliberate, almost like a puppet on strings. I knew he wasn't going to hurt me. He was going to follow the rules, the same horrible rules that had claimed so many others. I could see the frantic terror in Sarah's eyes. She was a witness, an unwilling participant. I had to stop him. I lunged forward, grabbing his arm, trying to stop him from hurting himself. But he was stronger than he looked, a man possessed. We struggled, and then I heard a new sound, a sound of a door opening. I looked up and I saw Sarah standing in the doorway, her face pale, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and confusion. She was not a part of the quiet. She was here and she was watching. "Sarah, go back. Get out of here." I screamed, my voice a desperate plea. But she didn't move. She just stood there, her eyes fixed on the scene unfolding before her, a horror movie come to life. I felt a pang of guilt. I had dragged her into this, a world of silent suffering and self-inflicted wounds. Old Man Hemlock's eyes, still wide and vacant, were now fixed on her. He released his grip on the cleaver, and it fell to the floor with a deafening clatter. He took a step toward her, his movements still slow and deliberate. I knew what he was going to do. He was going to bring her into the quiet. He was going to make her a part of this nightmare. I grabbed the cleaver from the floor and held it high. "Stop!" I screamed, my voice a raw, desperate roar. "Leave her alone." He didn't stop. He just kept walking toward her, a vacant, horrifying smile on his face. I swung the cleaver with all my might, but he moved with a terrifying grace, a speed and purpose I hadn't seen before. He dodged the cleaver, his body a blur of motion. He was a man possessed, a man who was no longer in control of his body. He was a vessel, a shell, a puppet. He reached Sarah, and his hand, a hand that was now cold and clammy, reached out and touched her face. She didn't flinch. She just stood there, her eyes wide and unblinking, a blank expression on her face. The humming, which had been a low drone, suddenly got louder, more insistent, a high-pitched whine that was trying to get inside my head. It was a song of sorrow, and she was a moth drawn to a flame. I knew what was happening. It was the lure, the siren song. The voice, it wasn't just in the air. It was in the meat, in the blood, in the town. It was everywhere, and it was calling to her. It was telling her to be a part of the quiet, to join the ranks of the self-inflicted. I had to stop it. I had to break the connection. I had to destroy the source. I dropped the cleaver and ran to the back of the shop, to the meat locker. I opened the door and the cold air rushed out. I saw a dozen deer hanging on hooks, their bodies pale and lifeless. But there was something else. A large, iron chest chained to the wall. It had a heavy lock, a lock that was old and rusted. I tried to open it, but it wouldn't budge. I heard a sound behind me. I turned and I saw Old Man Hemlock standing in the doorway, his eyes wide and vacant. He wasn't alone. Sarah was with him, her eyes now wide and unblinking, a blank, horrifying expression on her face. She was a part of the quiet. She had joined the ranks of the self-inflicted. I had failed. I had lost her. "Mark," she whispered, her voice a ghost of a whisper, a sound that was not her own. "You have to be quiet. You have to respect the tradition. This is how it is." I looked at her and I knew what I had to do. I wasn't going to let this thing win. Not now. Not ever. I had to fight. I had to make a stand. I wasn't going to give up. I grabbed a fire extinguisher from the wall and swung it with all my might, hitting the iron chest with a deafening thud. The chain rattled, the lock groaned, and the chest, it trembled. The humming, which had been a constant drone, suddenly got louder, more urgent, a shriek of rage. The meat in the locker, it began to writhe, the deer bodies twitching and convulsing, their eyes wide and vacant. The air was filled with a chorus of screams and whispers, 1,000 voices all speaking at once. The monster, it was alive. It was angry. It was trying to fight back. It was a game now, a game of cat and mouse, and I was the mouse. I was trapped, and my only way out was to fight a force I couldn't see, to fight the very soul of the town I lived in. I swung the extinguisher again and again, the sound of metal against metal echoing in the small shop. The chain rattled, the lock groaned, and then with a final desperate crack, it broke. I pulled open the lid of the chest, and the cold air rushed out, carrying with it a wave of a familiar, horrifying stench. Inside, nestled on a bed of old, decaying leaves, was a large, pulsating heart. It was a deer heart, but it was bigger than any deer heart I had ever seen, and it was beating with a slow, rhythmic pulse, a pulse that was in sync with the humming. It was the source. It was the heart of the quiet. The air in the butcher shop was thick with the stench of decay and fear. The pulsating heart in the iron chest was the source of the nightmare, and I knew what I had to do. I had to destroy it. I grabbed the meat cleaver from the floor and held it high, ready to strike. But before I could, I heard a sound from behind me. A low, guttural growl that was filled with a cold, predatory hunger. I turned, and I saw Old Man Hemlock and Sarah standing in the doorway, their eyes wide and unblinking, their faces a blank mask of vacant bliss. They weren't just victims anymore. They were guardians, a living wall of flesh and bone, a horrifying manifestation of the town's collective nightmare. They were here to protect the heart, the source of the quiet. They were here to stop me. I looked at Sarah and my heart sank. Her eyes, once filled with a fiery passion, were now empty, two black holes that stared into nothingness. She was gone. The person I knew, the person I loved, was just a shell, a vessel for the monster. I knew I couldn't hurt her. I couldn't hurt him. But I had to. I had to end this. Sarah, I whispered, my voice a broken plea. Please, I have to do this. I have to save you. She didn't respond. She just stood there, her hands at her sides, a silent sentinel. Old Man Hemlock, his body rigid and unyielding, took a step toward me, a slow, deliberate motion. I knew he was coming for me, not to harm me, but to stop me, to take me, to make me a part of the quiet. I had to be smart. I had to outwit them. I dropped the cleaver and grabbed a heavy steel hook from the wall. I swung it with all my might, a desperate final attempt to stop them. But they were faster than I expected. They moved as one, a horrifying, choreographed dance. They dodged the hook, their bodies a blur of motion. They were a part of the nightmare, a part of the madness, and they were here to make me a part of it too. I ran to the other side of the meat locker, putting some distance between us. The pulsating heart, it was humming louder now, a song of sorrow and hunger that was trying to get inside my head. I had to fight it. I had to stay grounded, to stay in the real world. I focused on the cold air, on the smell of rot, on the feel of the steel hook in my hands. I had to be strong. Old Man Hemlock and Sarah, they moved in on me, their movements slow and deliberate, their eyes fixed on my face. They were not angry. They were not hateful. They were empty. They were a part of the quiet, and they were here to make me a part of it too. I had to do it. I had to hurt them. I had to break the connection. I had to destroy the source. I swung the hook with all my might, aiming for the heart in the chest. But before I could, I saw it. The heart, it was changing. It was growing, pulsating, and it was now a dark, oily mass, a thing that was made of nothing, a thing that was feeding on the town's fear and suffering. I knew then that this wasn't a monster. It was a disease that was spreading, infecting, and it was going to consume the entire town. I was a part of it. We were all a part of it. The quiet was not just a tradition. It was a sickness, a horrifying, life-altering sickness, and I was now a part of it. I had to fight it. I had to end it. I swung the hook with all my might, aiming for the heart. But my body, it was starting to give in. My legs trembled, my arms ached, and my mind was a muddled mess. The humming was getting louder, a constant low drone that was filled with a cold, predatory hunger. I was losing the fight. I was losing control. I was going to become a part of the quiet. I looked at Sarah and I saw her face, her eyes, her vacant expression. I knew I couldn't give up. I had to fight. For her. For the town. For humanity. I swung the hook one last time, a final desperate attempt to end this nightmare. The hook connected with the heart and the sound was a sickening squish. The heart, it burst, a torrent of black oily liquid pouring out of it, a liquid that smelled of rot and decay. The humming stopped instantly, replaced by a terrifying, absolute silence. The bodies of Old Man Hemlock and Sarah, they collapsed to the floor, their eyes wide and unblinking, their faces a blank mask of vacant bliss. They were free. The disease, it was gone. I stood there, my body trembling, my heart pounding in my chest. I had done it. I had ended the nightmare. But I knew it wasn't over. The disease, it was gone, but the town, it was still quiet. The people, they were still silent. The sickness, it was gone, but the memory, it was still there. We were forever changed. We were no longer a part of the quiet. We were a part of the silence. The air in the butcher shop was now cold and still, the sickly hum that had plagued me for days finally gone. The pulsating heart in the iron chest had been nothing but an oily black mess that was now beginning to congeal and harden. The bodies of Old Man Hemlock and Sarah lay motionless on the floor, their eyes wide and vacant. I had ended the nightmare, but I had a feeling that this was only the beginning. I looked at my hands, my body trembling with exhaustion and fear. The cleaver, it was still in my hands. The blood, it was still on my hands. I was a part of the nightmare, a part of the silence. I was no longer a history teacher. I was a monster hunter. And the hunt, it was just beginning. I knew what I had to do. I had to get out of the butcher shop, get back to my car, and get out of this town. I had to find a way to warn the world, to tell them about the silence, about the disease, about the meat. I had to find a way to save them, to save myself. I stumbled out of the butcher shop and into the night. The town was still. The street lights were on, the cars were parked, and the houses were quiet. But it was a different kind of quiet. It was a silence that was filled with a cold, predatory hunger. The town was a tomb, a desolate shell, a living graveyard. I reached my car and got in, my hands trembling as I turned the key. The engine roared to life, a sound that was now a terrifying roar in the silent night. I drove as fast as I could, the car a blur of motion, a frantic escape from a nightmare. I drove for hours, my eyes fixed on the road, my mind a muddled mess of fear and confusion. I was a part of the nightmare and I was running from it, but I couldn't run forever. I had to stop. I had to rest. I found a small gas station on the side of the road and pulled over. I got out of the car, my legs trembling, my body aching. I walked into the gas station and I saw a woman behind the counter. She was staring at me, her eyes wide and unblinking, a blank, horrifying expression on her face. She was a part of the quiet. She was a victim of the disease. She was a part of the nightmare. I knew what I had to do. I couldn't run. I couldn't hide. I had to fight. I had to make a stand. I was a monster hunter, and the hunt, it was just beginning. I had to find a way to save the world, to save myself. I had to find a way to end the silence, to end the nightmare. I had to go back. I got back in my car and turned it around. I drove back to the town, my heart pounding in my chest, my body trembling with fear. I was going back to the nightmare. I was going back to the silence. I was going back to the place where I had lost everything, but I was also going back to the place where I had found something worth fighting for. I reached the town and I saw a man walking down the street. He was a tall, gaunt man, and his movements were slow and deliberate. He was a part of the quiet. He was a part of the nightmare. He was a victim of the disease. I knew what I had to do. I had to save him. I got out of my car and walked toward him, my hands trembling, my body aching. He stopped, his eyes wide and unblinking, a blank expression on his face. He was a part of the nightmare, and he was here to make me a part of it too. I knew I couldn't fight him. I knew I couldn't save him. But I had to try. I had to make a stand. I looked at him and I saw his eyes, his vacant, horrifying expression. I saw his body, his trembling movements, his cold, clammy hands. I saw his soul, his empty, desolate soul. I knew what he was. He was a victim. He was a part of the nightmare. He was a part of the silence. I didn't try to stop him. I didn't try to save him. I just stood there watching him, a single tear rolling down my face. He walked past me, a ghost in the night, a silent sentinel. He was going to find a quiet place, a peaceful place, and he was going to end his life, to end his suffering. He was going to find a way to break the silence. He was going to find a way to end the nightmare. I knew then what I had to do. I had to fight. I had to make a stand. I had to save the world, to save myself. I had to find a way to end the silence, to end the nightmare. I was a part of the silence, a part of the nightmare, but I was also a part of something else. I was a part of the fight, a part of the rebellion. I was a part of the silence and I was going to break it. I was going to fight for my life, for my sanity, for my humanity. I was a part of the nightmare, but I was also a part of the solution. I was a part of the silence and I was going to end it. I was going to fight for my life, for my sanity, for my humanity. I was a part of the nightmare, but I was also a part of the solution. The fight, it was just beginning. The hunt, it was just beginning. The silence, it was just beginning. But so was the rebellion. And I was at the forefront of it. I was a part of the nightmare, but I was also a part of the solution. The silence, it was going to end. It was going to end.